Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back, way back, to ancient Greece, where marble temples shimmer under the sun and sculpted gods loom over dusty roads. But don't get too dreamy just yet. You're not here for a toga party with philosophers and feta cheese. No, you're about to live like a real ancient Greek. And spoiler, you probably won't survive this. Picture it. You're dropped into a cramped stone home in Athens. It's early morning, and your bed is just a mat on a dirt floor. The air reeks of last night's charcoal fire, and... Wait, is that goat? Probably. You stagger outside, rubbing your eyes, and your first challenge awaits. Personal hygiene, ancient style. Forget warm showers or fancy soaps. The Greeks are fond of something far more slippery: olive oil. You're expected to strip down, no towels, just confidence. Pour olive oil over your body, and then scrape off the sweat, grime, and yesterday's regrets using a curved bronze blade called a strigil. It's like exfoliating, but with medieval weaponry. There's no soap, no shampoo, no conditioner, unless you count crushed herbs in water or the occasional urine rinse, which some Greeks genuinely believed could whiten teeth or cleanse skin. Yeah. Historians still argue whether these more extreme hygiene rituals were widespread or just weird outliers. But let's just say you'll never look at your salad dressing the same way again. Now, you're slicked and scraped, but don't expect to walk out smelling like a Mediterranean breeze. You'll smell like olives and yesterday's sunburn. Deodorant? That's a blend of powdered charcoal and flowers stuffed into your armpit folds. You're welcome. Time to get dressed. Except, you have no pants. The Greeks think trousers are for Scythian horse-riding savages. You've been issued a chiton, basically a long tunic, and a himation, a blanket-like cloak that you're supposed to artfully drape over your shoulder. There's no Velcro, no buttons, and no instructions. You're wrapping and adjusting, and suddenly one boob's out. Great. Breakfast? If you're lucky, it's barley porridge with honey and a dried fig. The Greeks are not big on variety. Bread, olive oil, and wine. That's your holy trinity. And no, not a nice brunch wine. It's usually sour, mixed with water, and stored in a clay jar that's probably never been cleaned. You sip and instantly gag. Still, you smile, because complaining makes you look like a pampered Athenian snob. As you shuffle through the narrow, dusty streets, you notice something peculiar. Everyone seems to be staring at your feet, or rather, your sandals. That's because most citizens go barefoot most of the time. Calluses are a badge of honor. Soft feet? Suspicious. So you rip off those sandals, step on a rock, and now your heel's bleeding. Congratulations. Suddenly, someone dumps a bucket of something awful into the street. There's no plumbing here. Everyone just tosses waste out the window and yells "Echo," a polite-ish warning. Too bad you don't speak Greek fast enough to dodge in time. You're ankle-deep in human waste before you've even seen the Acropolis. Speaking of which, don't expect to climb those pristine marble stairs unless you're male, citizen-born, and not a slave. Women, foreigners, and enslaved people, you're sidelined. Even if you're male, you need to prove you're freeborn and 18 before you're allowed near important public buildings. It's like an exclusive club, but instead of a guest list, there's just an old guy with a stick asking who your father was. You think you might freshen up with some sunscreen. Guess what ancient Greeks used? Crocodile dung, if you're rich and weird, or thick layers of chalky lead paste if you're poor and desperate. That's right. Your skin is either poison white or you're sizzling like a meat skewer under that brutal sun. You stop to rest under an olive tree and get a splinter from the bark. No big deal, until it gets infected. There's no antiseptic, no Band-Aid, just a few herbs and prayers to Asclepius, the god of healing. And even then, there is a good chance the doctor will come at you with a red-hot knife and a steady chant of, "Hold still." As the day winds down, the streets start filling with smoke from home fires. You're invited to a neighbor's house. Maybe this will be a good ending? Nope. You're handed a block of goat cheese, some salted anchovies, and a chunk of sour wine-soaked bread. Your stomach's doing flips, but you swallow it politely. The goat watches you from the corner. You think it might be judging you. You finally stumble back home, scrape off the dirt and sweat, again with the oil, and collapse on your floor mat, praying the night air will keep the fleas away. No fan, no mattress, no mosquito net. Just your aching feet, your olive oil slicked back, and a lingering suspicion that you stepped in something divine. So, after surviving your olive oil scrub down and dodging surprise sewage attacks, you figure things have to improve. Maybe now it's time to enjoy a little ancient democracy, right? You've heard all the stories. Brilliant minds gathering to vote, voices of the people shaping the city-state. You're picturing marble steps, wise debate, calm speeches, maybe even a slow clap or two. Well, no. What you walk into is more like an ancient riot with paperwork. Welcome to the Ecclesia, the Athenian assembly. It meets on a hillside called the Pnyx, and if you're a free male citizen, you're legally expected to show up. That's about 6,000 sweaty guys shouting over each other in the hot sun, all trying to vote on laws, taxes, wars, and yes, who should be kicked out of the city for being annoying. This was called ostracism, and yes, it was literally a popularity contest. You try to blend in, but the yelling is instant. One man wants more ships, another wants fewer taxes, someone else is accusing their neighbor of treason. You don't even know what today's issue is, but someone hands you a broken piece of pottery and tells you to scratch a name on it. Your vote. Hope you didn't bring your lunch, because eating here is not allowed. And even if it were, there's no break. These guys will argue for hours, sunburning and shouting until someone finally screams louder than the rest and everyone claps. That counts as a vote. Or maybe not. Historians still argue whether decisions were made by show of hands, noise levels, or some combination of both. Either way, subtlety is not your friend. You raise your hand to ask a question. Big mistake. A silver-bearded man turns to you and says, "Speak only if you have something wise to say." No pressure. You stutter something about fairness, and suddenly someone in the crowd mutters, "Foreigner." Great. Your accent gave you away. Let's talk about citizenship. In Athens, it's like gold dust. You need to be born of 2 Athenian parents, be male, over 18, and complete military training. That excludes women, slaves, immigrants, and, oops, you. If you're caught trying to vote without the right status, you could be fined or worse, paraded through the streets as a fraud. And this crowd, not exactly calm or forgiving. You try to back away slowly, but someone grabs your shoulder and offers you a fig. Friendly, right? Not really. He wants your support for his idea about raising barley taxes. You nod just to escape, and next thing you know, he's announcing to the crowd that you endorse him. Now you're famous, and not in a good way. The ecclesia is not just loud, it's long. There are no microphones, so everyone has to bellow. It's less "I have a dream" and more "I have a headache." You're roasting under your Himalayan, your armpits are betraying you, and there's no bathroom unless you feel like climbing halfway back down the hill. Eventually, someone proposes ostracizing a politician for being too ambitious. They pass around ostraca, shards of pottery used like voting slips. Each man scratches a name into his shard, hoping to exile someone for 10 years. You stare at yours, unsure what to do, so you scribble the only Greek name you remember, Plato. Everyone gasps, "Wrong century, wrong guy, and he's not even in office." Now you look both stupid and suspicious. The session ends with a sort of chaotic cheer, and people start filing out. Your ears are ringing. You learned nothing, except maybe that democracy is messier than it looks on documentaries. There's no dignified scroll reading, no calm consensus, just ancient chaos with a hint of olive oil and yelling. And yet this messy system is revolutionary for its time. While biased, brutally exclusive, it's still the first known experiment in self-government where regular citizens, not kings, make decisions. It's the root of the very idea that people can rule themselves, even if today it means getting screamed at by a fishmonger named Nicandros. As you leave, a small man with one sandal and a sack of onions tells you, "Next time, speak louder." You smile, nod, and immediately vow there won't be a next time. You head back through the agora, the public square, thinking the worst is over. That's when you realize your voice is hoarse, your head is pounding, and your stomach is rumbling again. And there's still no lunch, just some guy reciting a Homeric poem in exchange for figs. By the time you reach your home, a kid throws a rock at you and shouts, "Speak up next time, coward." Democracy, indeed. You wake up sore from yesterday's democratic beatdown and realize your legs are chafed. That's when it hits you again. You still don't have pants. No one does. Welcome to the No Trousers Club of ancient Greece, where your fashion options range from draped to even more draped. You reach for your chiton, a long rectangle of linen held together by pins, and your hopes. You wrangle it over your head, trying not to stab yourself with a fibula, a brooch that doubles as a weapon if you're clumsy enough. And then there's the himation, the outer wrap that's supposed to say respectable citizen, but on you looks like an unraveling curtain. You attempt to secure everything with a zone, a primitive belt, but 5 minutes later, one shoulder's uncovered and your garment slipping like a badly tied bedsheet. You now understand why Greek statues look so still. They're terrified of moving. This whole no-pants lifestyle may seem liberating, but for you, it's a logistical nightmare. Sitting down turns into a mini survival challenge. You can't just flop into a chair, mostly because chairs are rare and reserved for fancy people. It's benches or dirt for you. And that's fine until you try to stand up again, and your himation has somehow glued itself to your legs with sweat. Lovely. Meanwhile, women have it even harder. If you're a woman, your peplos or kore garment is floor length and heavier than your dignity. It's meant to be modest and graceful, which really means it takes 10 minutes just to walk across the room without tripping. And heaven help you if there's wind. A strong breeze is enough to turn your carefully pinned outfit into an ancient parachute. But here's a fun twist. Greek fashion is all about layers. In the middle of a Mediterranean summer, with zero deodorant, you're a walking sweat factory held together by pins and stubbornness. And don't even dream of changing clothes often. Laundry is a whole day affair involving hot water, lye, stomping, and hanging garments out in dusty courtyards where they absorb every scent of the neighborhood, from lamb stew to open-air toilets. You probably get 2 tunics per year if you're lucky. That's right, 2. That ketchup stain, it's now part of the aesthetic. You think maybe shoes will save you? Think again. Greek sandals are flat, thin, and offer the same support as wet cardboard. Most Greeks go barefoot anyway, so if you're wearing them too often, people might think you're either rich or delicate. Neither wins you points in a culture where walking 10 miles a day is considered light exercise. Speaking of exercise, fashion isn't just about looking good, it's about being good. Physical fitness is tied to citizenship, and nudity is standard in gymnasiums. Yes, naked. It's not just a weird fringe thing, it's the norm. Men train nude as a sign of honor and masculinity. If you're shy, sorry, you'll stand out more by not undressing. Imagine showing up to the gym in your modest tunic, only to be told, "You know we wrestle naked here, right?" And yes, the ground is just packed dirt. Have fun getting that grit out of places no soap has ever been. Fashion also varies by city-state. For instance, in Sparta, the vibe is military chic. Spartan women famously wore shorter skirts and could actually show their thighs, a scandalous idea elsewhere in Greece. And they exercised too, often in public, causing lots of pearl-clutching among Athenian men who believed women should remain silent and invisible. Historians still debate whether Spartan women's visible role in society made them freer or just more functional within a hyper-militarized state. And then there are accessories, if you can afford them. Jewelry is mostly limited to festivals or weddings, and it's rarely flashy. A pendant of Athena here, a bronze bracelet there. Makeup? Mostly lead-based pastes for skin whitening and crushed berries for color, which sounds romantic until the lead slowly poisons you. Cute. Want a haircut? Head to the local Kureus, a barber/gossip hub. The cuts are simple, short for men, elaborately curled or pinned for women. There's no conditioner, but there is olive oil, again. And if you're male, don't even think about growing a full beard unless you can back it up with manly deeds. A scraggly beard? Social suicide. Eventually, you walk past a crowd gathered around a sculpture of a nearly naked hero, muscles carved like marble poetry. You sigh. You've been here 3 days, and your toga keeps falling off, your thighs are rubbed raw, and you smell like grilled onions wrapped in linen. It's then you realize that in ancient Greece, clothing isn't just about fashion. It's about function, status, and endurance. You're expected to wear your station and wear it without complaint. There are no shopping sprees, no quick wardrobe swaps, no comfy jeans and hoodie backup plan. Just pins and sweat, and the constant fear of accidentally flashing someone mid-conversation. It's barely dawn, and you're already being screamed at. Welcome to Sparta, where morning cuddles have been replaced with combat drills. And yes, those are children wrestling in the dirt beside you, shirtless, barefoot, with zero adult supervision. You thought you were in ancient Greece for some philosophical strolls and feta-topped salads. Oh no, sweet dreamer. You've landed squarely in the land of the Agoge, Sparta's notorious military training program. And the first rule of Agoge? Comfort is weakness. You're herded out of your sleeping quarters by a shout so guttural it sounds like someone gargling rocks. You're not sure where you are anymore. Your bed? A straw mat. Your blanket? A thin strip of wool. Pillow? What pillow? This place operates under the belief that too much warmth or softness leads directly to moral collapse. You're starving, not just peckish, truly empty. That's intentional. Spartan boys were underfed on purpose to encourage cunning and theft. That's right, stealing food was part of the curriculum. If you got caught, you weren't punished for the theft, you were punished for getting caught. Steal well, or starve creatively. You scan the room. 12-year-olds doing squats with spears, a kid sharpening a stick that might be a toothbrush, or a weapon, it's unclear, and somewhere, someone is already bleeding. Today, the instructor growls, we fight. You blink. Is there breakfast first? A stretch? A waiver to sign? No, there's just mud. Out on the training field, you're paired with someone half your age and twice your muscle mass. He nods once, then punches you in the stomach. That's the warm-up. Spartan children trained from the age of 7, taken from their families to be forged into warriors. The state raised them now. Parents were optional. Compassion? Optional. Even shoes were optional. In fact, going barefoot year-round was part of the training, meant to toughen you physically and spiritually. You, on the other hand, miss your sandals so much you're hallucinating flip-flops. Eventually, you get your hands on a xiphos, a short Spartan sword. It's dull, thank the gods, but still heavy. They expect you to carry it, swing it, and run with it, all while shouting war chants and dodging blows from kids who've been doing this since they were tall enough to punch kneecaps. The instructor corrects your posture by smacking you with a wooden rod. It stings. He tells you to fight like Leonidas would. You try to look brave, you mostly look like you need a nap. Then comes the krypteia, a terrifying part of Spartan adolescence. Think Secret Police meets psychological horror film. Teenage boys were sent out at night, armed and cloaked, to spy on the helots, Sparta's enslaved class. And sometimes, well, let's just say observe and report often turned into observe and eliminate. Historians still argue whether this was formalized ritual or unregulated blood sport, but either way, it's a hard pass for you. You whisper to the kid next to you, "Do we get lunch?" He smirks and throws you a single boiled egg. That's it. That's your meal. You eat it faster than is dignified and wonder how your intestines haven't resigned yet. Training ends with a group jog, in full armor, around the city, singing battle songs. You try to keep up, but collapse somewhere near a fig tree. A goat walks over and eats part of your cloak. You finally limp back to the communal mess hall, Syssitia, they call it, where Spartan men dined together on black broth, a mystery stew made from pig's blood, salt, and vinegar. It looks like something scraped off the bottom of a war drum. You take one bite and immediately regret your life choices. Even the Spartans didn't love it. They just endured it, and now so must you. But don't think you can skip out early. Attendance at these meals is mandatory. If you fail to contribute food or can't pay your share of ingredients, you're kicked out. No food, no fellowship, no status. Essentially exiled from male society. And that, in Sparta, is a fate worse than death. If you're a Spartan girl, the story's a little different, but not exactly easier. Spartan girls were actually educated and trained in athletics. They were expected to run, wrestle, and throw javelins, all to ensure they produced strong warrior babies someday. Sounds empowering, until you remember it's all in service to the state. Still, compared to women in other Greek city-states, Spartan females had astonishing freedom. They could own land, inherit property, and throw shade at men who didn't measure up. One Spartan queen, Gorgo, famously told an Athenian woman, "We are the only women who give birth to men." Ouch. By the end of the day, you're a bruised, barefoot, sunburned smear of a human being. You drag yourself back to your straw mat. No one tucks you in, no lullaby. Just the faint sound of someone practicing shield slams in the next room. You curl up and pray the kid with the spear doesn't steal your egg tomorrow. You survive Sparta, barely, and escape back to Athens, wheezing and limping, hoping for something softer. A little culture, maybe, some poetry, perhaps a polite snack. Ha! Joke's on you. It's mealtime in ancient Greece, and you're about to be tragically disappointed. You're invited to a symposium, and your heart leaps because it sounds like symposium, which in modern terms usually means nice chairs, sparkling water, and philosophical banter. But no, a symposium here is more like a boys-only drinking party with terrible snacks and some light interpretive poetry. And if you're not a male citizen, you're either excluded entirely or expected to serve. But before we even get there, let's talk about Greek cuisine. The romantic idea of the Mediterranean diet? Yes, it existed, but only if you were rich. Most people lived on the same three things every single day: barley, olives, and wine. That's it. Toss in the occasional onion or goat cheese, and you've basically recreated 90% of your meals. Fruit? Seasonal. Meat? Reserved for festivals or sacrifices, and the best cuts went to the gods. You get the chewy bits. Your breakfast is something like maza, a hard barley cake soaked in watered-down wine. Sounds fancy. Tastes like cardboard dipped in vinegar. You try to add honey, but it's expensive and guarded like treasure, so you settle for crumbs and sadness. By midday, you're craving literally anything else. You find a street vendor selling salted fish, which smells like someone locked Poseidon in a jar and forgot about him. Still, you nibble it because you're starving. That'll be 2 obols, and yes, coins are heavy and awkward, so you fumble them like a tourist. Dinner is the only time things look up, especially at a wealthier home. That's where the symposium comes in. After the main meal, mostly more barley, cheese, and boiled lentils, the wine is brought out. It's stored in massive clay jugs called craters, and no, it's not served straight. Greeks always diluted their wine with water, because drinking it pure was considered barbaric. Of course, how much you dilute it determines whether you're civilized or waking up in a goat pen. Drinking comes with rules. You don't gulp. You recline, you sip, you offer a toast to Dionysus, god of wine and chaos, and hope he doesn't show up personally. And then come the games. These are not the fun kind. One favorite is kotabos, where players fling the dregs of their wine cups at targets while reclining sideways. It's like beer pong, but with more drapery and less dignity. You miss every shot, spill wine on your himation, and a guy named Cleon laughs so hard he falls off his couch. The conversations? A mix of bad poetry, erotic riddles, and intense philosophical debates that spiral into arguments within 5 minutes. You try to share a thought, maybe barley isn't that bad, and someone accuses you of being a Persian spy. And then the music starts. Out come the auli, double-piped reed instruments that sound like someone strangling 2 ducks in harmony. A hired hetaira, a female entertainer, trained in music and clever talk, sings a haunting ode to Aphrodite, while the rest of the room sloshes their wine and sways like seaweed in a tide pool. At some point, someone begins quoting Homer, loudly, from memory. You clap politely, he thinks you're challenging him, suddenly it's a recitation contest, and you don't even speak enough Greek to ask for a bathroom break. Back home, if you're not passed out under a bench somewhere, you dream of a warm, balanced meal. Chicken? Not common. Vegetables? Usually boiled to sadness. Even fish, that Mediterranean staple, isn't guaranteed unless you live by the coast and have serious drachma. In rural areas, farmers get by on stew made with lentils, garlic, onions, and wild herbs, if they're lucky. And if you're enslaved, your meals are handed out as rations. Maybe a barley mash, maybe stale bread, maybe the bits left behind after the real people eat. One quirky tidbit, garum, a fermented fish sauce imported from other parts of the ancient world, was prized by some Greeks. Imagine a sauce made from rotting fish guts, aged in the sun, and drizzled over vegetables. You gag, but the man next to you calls it divine. Historians still debate whether Greeks truly loved it or if they just pretended to impress the Romans. Back to wine for a moment, because in ancient Greece, it flows like sarcasm. But there's a catch. You're not supposed to drink too little or too much. Symmetria, or balance, is everything. Drink too little, you're boring. Too much, you're a disgrace. Just enough, you're a charming philosopher with flushed cheeks and passable poetry. Too bad you're 3 cups in and your speech now includes the word blibble. By the end of the night, you're full of cheap cheese, half-sour wine, and regret. Your breath smells like fermented barley, and your toga has somehow turned into a napkin. You stumble home under the stars, hoping you don't bump into anyone important or sober. You collapse on your straw mat again, whispering one desperate modern prayer. Just one French fry, please. You're learning that war in ancient Greece isn't just a brutal test of strength. It's a constant test of endurance. The stench of sweat, metal, and blood mixes with sun-baked earth and charred leather. The heat makes your bronze armor feel like a furnace. Your arms ache, your throat is dry, and you've only been standing in formation for 20 minutes. The shouting intensifies. Your captain bellows the final order. Advance! Shields push forward, sandals dig into the dirt, and the phalanx lurches toward the enemy line. You're in the middle ranks, so you don't see the impact, but you hear it. The sound is sickening, like 100 hammers slamming into butchered meat. You grip your spear with both hands, then the line surges and you're in it, forced forward, body pressed between the shield on your left and the shield on your right. There's no room to move independently. You stab forward blindly as bodies press and screams fill the air. You feel your spear hit something soft. It gives. A man screams. Did you just... The thought barely forms before a new horror strikes. Someone in front of you collapses. The line wavers. You stumble forward and nearly trip over a corpse. It's not even an enemy. It's one of yours. His helmet is cracked open. You weren't ready to see a man's skull like that. Someone yells in Doric Greek to hold the line. You try. Gods, you try. You push your shield forward, feel the weight of another body slam into it. This time, it's the enemy, face to face. He has a wild beard and murder in his eyes. He jabs his spear at your leg. You block with the edge of your shield and thrust your own spear into his exposed ribs. He grunts, then sinks, just like that. And then another takes his place. You lose track of time. Minutes feel like hours. The rhythm of war is brutal and unforgiving. Thrust, block, push, survive. When someone dies, you can't stop to grieve or help. You just close the gap. Every few seconds, your arm trembles harder. Your grip weakens. Your breathing becomes ragged. Finally, a trumpet blows. Retreat? Reinforcement? No, rout. The enemy line breaks. They flee. Your commander roars for a final push, but you're too numb to cheer. You just follow, stumbling forward, stepping over broken spears, shields, and bodies. So many bodies. After the battle, it's not over. You don't get to go home. You help collect the wounded, friend and foe alike. You drag bodies from the field. You help build the funeral pyres. And then, in the flickering light of sacred flames, you watch comrades burn. The priests chant. The gods are invoked. But none of it comforts you. You spend the night in a makeshift camp. The medics, slaves, and servants apply wine to wounds, stitch torn flesh together, and snap broken bones back into place. You try to sleep. You can't. Your eyes are wide open. Every time they close, you see faces, men falling, mouths screaming, eyes wide of terror. Morning comes. The sky is blue and clear. Birds chirp like nothing happened. You're told to be ready by midday. There's another city to march toward, another army to face, another line to hold. You've only survived one battle, and already your soul feels older than the Acropolis. You thought you were brave. You thought war would feel noble, but it doesn't. It feels like a curse. As the hoplites form up again, and the sound of marching feet begins to echo across the land, you whisper a silent prayer to Athena. Goddess, grant me the strength to endure another day. But deep inside, you wonder, can I? Because in ancient Greece, there's no room for doubt, and there's no time to rest. The march resumes beneath the relentless sun. Your shoulders sag under the weight of armor that has begun to chafe your raw skin. The bronze helmet digs into your forehead. Your nose is filled with the smell of sweat-soaked leather, and your feet are blistered from yesterday's march, yet today offers no reprieve. You thought surviving a battle was the end of the trial. It was just the beginning. This is no standing army. Ancient Greek warfare is a seasonal affair. Citizens become soldiers only when needed, which means your fellow hoplites, your neighbors, merchants, farmers, and poets are as tired and broken as you. No one is trained for constant warfare. No one is ready for its weight to become routine. But routine it is. You pass villages where farmers avert their gaze. You see boys your age and younger staring at your torn tunic, your bloodied greaves, as if trying to understand what they'll become next season. The elders nod silently. They've seen this cycle before. You march past vineyards that were once green and full, now trampled, burned, looted. This war, like most, is about land and pride, and yet all you feel is hunger and grief. Midday breaks the column for a brief rest. Your rations are stale, barley bread so dry it crumbles in your hand, a sip of vinegar-thinned wine, olives wrinkled and bitter. You chew slowly, not for taste, there is none, but because once it's gone, you don't know when you'll eat again. There's no currency on campaign except favor and force. You hope the next town surrenders before you arrive. A few soldiers joke, trying to lift spirits. One man, a wiry farmer from Boeotia, plays a reed pipe. The melody is simple, a song from home. For a moment, you almost remember what it feels like to laugh. But then the captain signals, time to move. You shoulder your shield, ignoring the protest of your muscles, and rise with the others. That night you reach a village that didn't flee in time. They open the gates before the phalanx even approaches, white cloths fluttering from poles, women and children gathered in the square. They offer food and shelter, but behind their trembling smiles, you see terror. And for good reason. Your commander claims the food stores. The temple is searched for tribute. The village chief pleads for mercy. Some of the younger soldiers jeered, drunk on power and wine. You're told to quarter in an abandoned barn. You sleep in hay that smells of goats. You try not to think about the girl who brought you a cup of water earlier, her eyes frightened and unblinking. You want to believe you wouldn't be the kind of soldier who takes. But war corrodes the soul like salt on bronze. You're not the only one changing. The next morning brings a different kind of terror. Fever. One of your companions shivers uncontrollably. His skin is hot, his eyes red and glassy. The healer, an old woman with yellow teeth, mutters about tainted water and curses. There is no medicine, only prayers and poultices. No one will carry him. You leave him behind. As the sun rises, the phalanx moves again. You pass fields where the dead from another battle still rot. Buzzards circle above. The stench is unbearable. You cover your face with a scrap of cloth, but it doesn't help. The captain mutters something about plague. Everyone walks faster. You finally arrive at a large city-state, its walls rising above a hill, its banners flapping defiantly. This isn't some village. This is Sparta's ally, well defended. You're told to prepare for siege. You weren't trained for this. Siege warfare in ancient Greece is a slow death wrapped in stone. There are no catapults, no battering rams worth the name. Just waiting. You cut off their food, you block the wells, you taunt them hoping someone opens the gate. And while you wait, you starve too. The commanders eat first. The rest of you get scraps. You play dice, sharpening weapons, arguing over who saw the omens first. Days blur into weeks. You lose track of time. At night you lie under the stars. You stare at Orion just like Homer's heroes did, and wonder if the gods see you at all. You whisper to Athena, or Apollo, or even Hades, anyone who might listen. You were once a citizen of a bright and clever city, a boy who read poems and dreamed of glory. Now you are filth-covered and frightened. You don't dream anymore. You endure. One morning, the gates open. But not because of surrender. They open because their warriors are charging. It's a surprise attack, madness, but effective. You scramble to your feet, shield half-strapped, spear forgotten in the dirt. Arrows whistle through the air, someone screams beside you. A torch sets the nearby Kent on fire. You see a man with one arm swinging a club from a broken beam. This isn't battle. This is chaos. You barely survive. You fight with your short sword stabbing wildly at shadows and smoke. When the dust clears, the city's warriors have been driven back, but not without cost. Your captain is dead. Your unit is down to a handful. The siege is over. You'll retreat in the morning. You walk among the bodies, and you realize something. In ancient Greece, war is not a matter of victory or defeat. It is a matter of survival, and even that is never guaranteed. Retreat is no less punishing than battle. There's no triumphant return to trumpets and cheering crowds. There is dust, exhaustion, and silence. You march not as a warrior returning in glory, but as a ghost dragging itself home. The men don't talk much now. Too many voices are missing. Your rations are gone, and the trail offers little. You gnaw on foraged roots, chew dry fig bark, and drink stream water with the taste of rot. At night, stomachs growl like wild dogs. A man collapses and doesn't rise. No one has the strength to carry him. A raven lands on his still chest before you even walk out of sight. When you finally reach the outskirts of your city-state, something inside you lifts. Relief, perhaps, but it's faint. The gates open, the guards nod, but no one cheers. You've returned, but you are not celebrated. You're dismissed like a spent tool. You're told to report to the agora for your debriefing. It's not a warm welcome, it's a public formality. A magistrate with ink-stained fingers takes your name. He asks about the battle. He doesn't ask how you are. You're handed a chit for a small payment, barely enough to pay for bread, and told to go home, if you still have one. The streets feel different now, smaller, narrower. The laughter of children rings oddly sharp. You walk past stalls of pottery and olives, fishmongers and scribes. You pass your own home, your old shop, your neighbors, and they look at you like something has changed. And it has. You're no longer just a citizen, you're a veteran. But that word doesn't carry honor. It carries distance. People don't know what to say to someone who's seen what you have. You try to return to your old work, but your hands tremble, your back aches, and worse, your sleep is no longer your own, because now the dreams come. Nightmares. The clash of bronze, the faces of the dying, the cries of the wounded. Some nights you wake up screaming. Other nights you wake up unable to move, drenched in sweat, heart racing like a startled horse. You try to pray. You visit the temples, burn incense, make offerings. But you're no longer sure the gods hear you, or worse, you fear they do and don't care. To escape the memories, you spend more time at the symposia, the elite drinking parties of the city's wealthy men. You're invited to one. An old companion from your first campaign pulls you in. The room smells of wine, perfume, and roasted lamb. Slaves fill your cup, women sing, and philosophers debate love and virtue while reclining on pillows. But you don't feel virtuous. You feel numb. You drink until you can't stand. You laugh at jokes you don't understand. You flirt, you feast, you pretend. The host tells stories of battle like it was a game, exaggerating his heroics. Everyone claps. You stare into your cup and think about the boy with the missing arm, or the girl who brought you water, or the soldier you stepped over because you were too scared to help. There's another place to go if the symposium doesn't numb the pain, the palestra, the wrestling ground. You go there not for training, but for punishment. You take hits, hard ones. You give them too. You bleed on the sand. The pain helps. It's simple. It makes sense. But the peace never lasts. Soon, there's talk of another conflict. The alliances are shifting again. Athens is encroaching on sacred territory. Corinth is demanding tribute. Sparta threatens to move. Your name is called. Again. Because you're of age. Because you're able-bodied. Because you're a citizen. You want to say no. But this is ancient Greece. You don't get to say no. Citizenship is not a right here. It's a debt. You owe the city your life, and it intends to collect. You find yourself at the armory again, being issued a spear and a helmet that still smells faintly of the last man who wore it. You say goodbye to your mother, your siblings, your friends. They don't weep. They've done this before. If they weep every time, they'd never stop. You march again. You fight again. You kill again. And each time you leave a little more of yourself behind on the battlefield. Back home, when you do return, the theater offers brief relief. You sit in the stone rows of the amphitheater, shoulder to shoulder with others who've seen too much. You watch the tragedies, Euripides, Sophocles, and their characters feel like old companions, men who suffer, gods who play cruel games, women driven mad by grief. You understand those stories now in a way you never did before. They were never just plays. They were warnings. You see a young man sitting a few rows ahead, wide-eyed, clean hands. He laughs at the comic interlude, his future bright. You wonder how long it will be before his name is called, and if he too will learn that in ancient Greece, the glory they promised you is just another word for grief. Eventually, the war slows, but your torment does not. Peace is declared, for now, and you return to civilian life once more. But peace in ancient Greece is not the calm you imagine. It's fragile, tense. Everyone knows it's only a matter of time before something fractures again. You've returned, but you are not the same, and neither is your city. You try to live. Really, you do. You reopen your shop. You try to carve wood again, or mend shoes, or teach boys the alphabet, whatever humble skill you had before. But the world feels too quiet, too soft. You flinch at loud noises. You check over your shoulder more than you should. You speak little. You're not even sure who you are anymore without a shield in your hand. One day, the assembly meets in the Pnyx, the great democratic heart of Athens. You're required to attend, as all free male citizens are. The sun burns your scalp as men shout over one another, jostling for position. Orators mount the bema, arguing for tax changes, military reforms, or retribution against some city across the sea. You listen, but you feel numb. Democracy is beautiful, they say. The kratos of the demos, the power of the people. But all you hear is a crowd of men who were never on the front lines. You know the cost of every vote they cast. You feel it in your joints, in your broken dreams, in your missing comrades. One man argues for a new expedition to Sicily, a chance at glory, he says. The crowd murmurs. You feel bile rise in your throat. That's what they always say before they send more boys to die. You don't speak. You could. You're allowed. But what would you say? That glory is a lie? That the gods don't care? That when a man dies screaming with his intestines in his hands, no one writes a poem about him? No, you don't say any of that. You go home. On your way, you pass a statue of a hero. Bronze cast in perfect form, muscles gleaming, spear lifted towards the heavens. People leave garlands at his feet. Children mimic his stance with sticks and smiles. You stand there a long time, staring. You wonder if he felt like you, alone, uncertain, exhausted. Probably not. Statues don't bleed. But people do. To find distraction, you visit the gymnasium. Not to train, but to listen. Philosophers pace the sand paths, robes flowing, speaking of virtue, courage, the soul. You hear a man named Socrates debating a group of wealthy youths. He asks unsettling questions, makes them uncomfortable. Some call him dangerous, others call him wise. You can't decide. Socrates turns to you, asks you what arete means, what excellence is. You don't answer. You don't want to say what you think, that there is no excellence in killing, that courage isn't dying for your city, it's coming home and living with what you've done. He watches you a moment, then smiles gently. Perhaps the wisest man is the one who admits he does not know, he says, and turns back to his students. You don't stay. Later, a celebration breaks out in the agora. News of a naval victory. Boys sing songs, women toss flower petals, men raise wine cups and shout the names of generals. The tragedy is forgotten for a day, but you remember. You remember the smell of burning flesh. You remember the way your friend's eyes went still. You remember the girl in the village, how her hands shook when she offered you figs. You can't forget. You won't. And then one day, a ship arrives from Egypt. Foreign merchants bring papyrus and spices, perfumes, and gods with animal heads. You're drawn to their stories, of pyramids that touch the sky, of tombs filled with treasure, of a land where death is not an ending, but a passage. You wonder if they're right, if perhaps the Greeks have it wrong, or maybe all cultures do. Maybe suffering is just part of being human, and always has been. The older you get, the more you understand. Ancient Greece is not just a land of myth and marble. It's a place of endless contradiction. Philosophy beside slavery, beauty beside brutality, democracy beside death. You admire a vase at a potter's stall one morning. It's painted with scenes of Heracles fighting the Hydra. A boy beside you says, "He's my favorite. He never gives up." You nod, but inside, you think, even Heracles went mad. Even he was punished by the gods for things beyond his control. Even heroes in this world suffer. You buy the vase anyway. You take it home. You set it down carefully in the center of your home, the only thing that hasn't changed. And for the first time in months, you sit quietly and let the silence hold you. Because in ancient Greece, survival is a victory, and you've earned yours. But even as you try to settle into a quieter life, you discover something else that might undo you. The law. Ancient Greece, especially Athens, prides itself on having a legal system, a place where disputes are resolved not by blood, but by the rule of reason. That sounds ideal, civilized, safe. But you quickly learn that justice here is a cruel game, one often played with loaded dice. It starts small. Your neighbor accuses you of damaging his olive tree. You swear you didn't, but in this world, oaths are cheap, and proof is hard to find. You're summoned to the dikasterion, the people's court. There is no judge as you'd understand it, just a jury of hundreds, chosen by lot that morning, chewing garlic and gossip. You are expected to defend yourself. There are no lawyers. You get a water clock, maybe 5 minutes to speak. Then your accuser speaks. Then the jury votes with bronze tokens. No deliberation, just noise, suspicion, and fate. You lose. Of course you do. You are fined. If you cannot pay, your property may be seized. If it's a serious charge, if it had been theft or impiety, you might even be enslaved or exiled. You walk away bitter and poorer, realizing that freedom in this world is precarious. You are free until you aren't, and often your fate hangs not on truth, but on persuasion, status, and sometimes pure luck. This is no isolated moment. The more time you spend in the city, the more you see how the mechanisms of democracy grind people down. The assembly, the courts, the councils, they offer voice, yes, but they also demand constant participation. Miss too many meetings, and you're fined. Speak too freely, and you make enemies. Propose the wrong decree, and you might be charged with graphe paranomon, introducing illegal legislation. Even being too smart can be dangerous. You remember Socrates. You hear rumors he's been charged with corrupting the youth and impiety, for asking questions, for thinking, for making men in power feel small. And when the trial comes, you're not surprised to hear the result. Guilty. The vote is close, but it doesn't matter. They give him a choice: exile or death. He chooses death. You stand in the crowd the day he drinks the hemlock, surrounded by men who once admired him, now watching him die, because he dared to challenge the world they built. He dies calmly, surrounded by students who weep openly. You don't cry. You're too stunned. This city of thinkers, of sculptors and philosophers and democracy has just murdered a man for asking questions. You return home and sit alone, the Heracles vase still on the shelf, watching the sunlight creep across the floor. This is not the first injustice you've seen, and it won't be the last. You try to lose yourself in rituals. The festivals offer some relief. You attend the Panathenea, watching his citizens parade to the Acropolis with a new robe for Athena's ancient wooden statue. You hear the sound of flutes and lyres, see dancing maidens and young men running in armor. It's beautiful, but it also feels hollow, because even here you sense the strain beneath the celebration, the cost of it all. One night during the city Dionysus, you watch a new play by a young dramatist. It's about war, about guilt, about a soldier who can't go home. You sit in the theater of Dionysus with 10,000 others, the sea breeze brushing your face, and feel something break inside you. The story is your story, and you are not alone. But that realization comes with pain, because now you see the cracks everywhere. The slaves who serve at the banquets, invisible. The women, shut out of politics, trapped in silence. The children, trained for a life of war before they've even lost their baby teeth. You used to believe this was the greatest civilization on Earth. Now you're not so sure. You walk past the Parthenon and see its glory anew, but this time you wonder how many hands were whipped to stack each marble block. You remember the tribute ships from the Delian League and realize this empire was built on the backs of others. And when a Persian merchant arrives, bringing silk and stories, you listen. You ask him about his homeland. You expect a savage, but he speaks gently, with kindness and depth. He describes libraries, gardens, laws. And you begin to wonder, have you been lied to all your life? Your world isn't collapsing. It's expanding. But that's no comfort. It's disorienting. Because in ancient Greece, truth is never handed to you. You have to fight for it. And sometimes when you finally grasp it, it destroys you. You aren't alone in your confusion. Others see it too. Some retreat into religion, others into hedonism, still others into politics. But all of them are trying, like you, to find solid ground in a world where nothing stays still. And one day, sitting on a stone step, you understand something painful and profound. You were not made for this place. Not because you are weak, but because this place asks too much of its people. It asks them to fight and die and grieve without pause, to think and question without security, to believe in gods who offer no mercy, to chase excellence in a world that punishes honesty. You rose to the challenge, but that challenge never ends. In ancient Greece, survival isn't just physical, it's philosophical. And most days, you're losing. By now, you've learned that living in ancient Greece is not just a physical battle. It's a daily duel with expectation, from your polis, your gods, your fellow citizens, and even your own reflection. You begin to notice how deeply honor controls this world. Not love, not kindness, honor. And not the kind won in fairy tales, but the brutal, public kind that demands sacrifice, humiliation, even death. Your cousin is caught stealing a coin purse. His trial lasts less than an hour. The crowd jeers as he's stripped, beaten, and exiled permanently. It doesn't matter that he was starving. Hunger is no excuse. What matters is that he dishonored the city. In another case, a man you once admired is accused of cowardice in battle. No formal trial this time. He disappears. Whispers say he took his own life rather than live with the shame. That, too, is considered honorable. You visit the cemetery outside the city walls, the Keramayakos, where the dead of noble families are buried beneath tall, carved steles. The rich are remembered in stone. The poor are forgotten in dust. You wonder what your grave will look like, if there'll even be one. Even relationships here are shaped by pride and position. Marriage isn't about romance, it's a contract. Wives are often married off by 14, locked into households, tasked with birthing sons and managing slaves. You meet a woman, a widow, who speaks with clarity and intelligence, but only behind closed doors. In public, she says nothing. She must say nothing. Love exists, yes, but it hides. In Athens, male bonds are often considered the highest form of affection. Older men take young lovers, erastes and eromenos, in relationships that are romantic, educational, and sometimes predatory. You find the lines blurred. You find yourself unsure of what is natural here and what is expected. And you learn that in this society, your body may belong to others as much as to yourself. Even in leisure, nothing comes easy. You try to race in the stadion, a straight-line sprint in the gymnasium. The men around you are hardened from years of daily training, their bodies lean and strong, their minds sharp. You lose badly. The shame burns worse than the sun. Someone tells you, a man must win or not be a man at all. You nod, but inside, something shrinks. You thought maybe you'd find peace in religion, so you attend the Eleusinian mysteries, sacred rites said to offer knowledge of life after death. You fast, cleanse, wear fresh clothes, and march with thousands to Eleusis, chanting hymns to Demeter and Persephone. There, deep inside the telesterion, the great hall of initiation, you finally see the ritual. But you're sworn to silence. You emerge changed, but not relieved, not saved, just more aware of how desperately people cling to hope in a world where the gods are cruel and silent. And yet the gods are everywhere. You see them in the clouds, in omens, in the strange way lightning sometimes strikes only one tree in a grove. You see them in illness, in fortune, in beauty. You visit Delphi to hear the oracle speak. You bring a gift, whatever you can afford, and kneel before the priestess in the smoke-filled chamber. She speaks in riddles. You leave more confused than when you came. But everyone tells you the gods are wise. And maybe they are. You try to be wise too. You try to find meaning in philosophy. You listen to the Stoics preach about virtue, to the Epicureans claim pleasure is the only good, to the Platonists talk about forms and higher realities. They all contradict each other, and yet somehow they're all convincing. That's the thing about ancient Greece. It's not just confusing, it's intentionally confusing. This society thrives on tension between body and mind, war and peace, freedom and obedience, reason and myth. You walk home one night past the docks and see a slave boy being whipped for breaking a jar. He cries out. No one stops the man holding the whip. You don't either. You freeze, heart pounding, sick to your stomach. The next morning, you pass the same boy. His back is raw. He doesn't meet your eyes. You want to say something, but what would you say? I'm sorry, won't feed him, won't free him. So you say nothing. And that silence becomes another wound you carry. Because in this world, if you aren't powerful, you're vulnerable. And if you are powerful, you're expected to pretend that vulnerability doesn't exist. You're learning what it means to live in a place that birthed Western civilization, yes, but also buried its guilt under marble columns and clever speeches. A place that invented freedom, but denied it to most. A place that worshipped beauty, but turned suffering into spectacle. A place that celebrated reason, but killed the man who asked too many questions. You once dreamed of ancient Greece as a golden age. Now you know the truth. It is a crucible. And most people like you, don't survive the fire unchanged. Change begins slowly, not in the laws, not in the temples, but inside you. You begin to realize that you no longer believe what you once did, not in the gods, not in the glory, not in the greatness of your polis. You've seen too much to be enchanted anymore. But disbelief in ancient Greece is dangerous. You try to hide it, to play the role, the obedient citizen, the devoted servant of Athena, the proud warrior who nods along when men praise Pericles or sing Homeric verses. But inside, a quiet rebellion is building, a rebellion of thought. You start asking questions, not aloud, never aloud, but inside your own mind. Why must a man fight for a city that won't feed its poor? Why do gods need sacrifices when they already have everything? Why are slaves treated as tools when they cry like any citizen? Why is knowledge feared? You keep your questions close. You've seen what happened to others who asked them too loudly. Meanwhile, your city is changing again. Athens is rich, yes, but power always draws envy. Sparta watches, Thebes stirs, Persia plots in the shadows. The Peloponnesian War is not a memory, it's a forecast. Whispers of unrest echo in the agora. You hear rumors of Macedon, a boy king named Alexander, taught by Aristotle, son of Philip. Some say he's marching across the world. Others laugh. No one conquers the East. But they don't laugh long, because one by one, the city-states fall under Macedon's shadow. Athens tries to hold on to its pride. It debates. It schemes. It sends envoys and threats and prayers. But power is shifting. One afternoon, you watch a Macedonian soldier walk through your market square. He's not shouting. He's not conquering. He's just there. His helmet gleams. His tunic bears a foreign crest, and everyone makes room for him. That's when you know the old world is dying, and no one can stop it. You thought ancient Greece would last forever, an eternal monument to reason, art, valor. But history doesn't freeze in stone. It moves, it forgets, and it destroys. As the decades pass, your body betrays you. Old battle wounds ache with the cold. Your teeth loosen. You walk slower, see less clearly, but your mind still burns. You remember everything. You remember the heat of battle, the weight of a friend dying in your arms, the fear of your first trial, the beauty of a vase, the laughter of boys at the theater, the silence of gods. You remember the way Athens looked at sunset, golden and proud, as if even the sky admired her. You remember what it felt like to believe in something, and what it felt like when that belief turned to ash. You spend your final years in quiet. Your shop is gone, sold off to pay fines or feed friends. You live in a narrow home near the harbor, where sailors curse and sing and drink all night. You don't mind. Their chaos feels honest. Sometimes you teach a boy or two how to write their names, how to read Hesiod or trace the lines of a map. They ask you what the gods are like. You smile and say, complicated. You don't lie, but you don't steal their wonder either. And every so often, someone brings you news of Alexander defeating Darius, of temples burning in Persia, of strange lands beyond the mountains, cities filled with elephants and gold, of philosophers arguing in distant academies. The world keeps growing, but it leaves people like you behind. You know you won't be remembered. Your name won't be etched into marble. There will be no statue in your honor, no epic to tell your tale. But still, you lived. You felt every shard of what it meant to be human in this age. The brilliance, the cruelty, the passion, the pain. You lived in the birthplace of philosophy, the forge of democracy, the cradle of war. You saw it all. And one night, as you lie on your woven mat, the lamp guttering low, the sea breeze brushing your face, you realize something. You wouldn't want to last a day in ancient Greece again. But you're grateful you did. Because now, as your eyes close for the last time, you are no longer just a shadow of history. You are part of it. You wake up the next morning sore, stiff, and starving. The pale morning sun rises over Athens, casting its golden glow across the whitewashed homes, marble columns, and bustling agora. There's no time to recover. The family you're staying with is already preparing for another full day, and they expect you to pull your weight. There's grain to grind, water to fetch, bread to bake, children to watch, and if you're a man, a gymnasium or assembly to attend. If you're a woman, your work remains indoors, where spinning wool, preparing food, and managing slaves dominates your hours. Even if you're wealthy, life isn't all symposiums and sculpting. Every Athenian citizen is expected to participate in civic life. There's jury duty, assigned by lottery, and public speaking in front of hundreds of peers, without microphones, note cards, or second chances. Stumble over your words or appear too timid, and you could be booed, fined, or worse, accused of cowardice or impiety. The pressure to perform is suffocating. And speaking of pressure, religion permeates everything. Forget to offer a sacrifice at the temple? Misstep during a procession? Disrespect a statue? That's sacrilege. Even if you're not struck down by lightning, the community might shun you, and your reputation could be irreparably damaged. The gods of Mount Olympus are temperamental, and so are the people who worship them. Still, you hold out hope for a moment of quiet, maybe a walk through the olive groves. But no, there's news that Sparta is moving troops near the isthmus. Tensions are rising again, talk of wars in the air. You begin to understand why philosophers like Socrates constantly asked, "What is the good life?" Because survival itself is a daily grind, and peace of mind is hard to come by. You find yourself walking through a bustling agora again, passing stalls selling oil, honey, and dried figs. A slave is flogged nearby for trying to steal bread. You avert your eyes. Justice is swift here, harsh. You recall again that most people you see are not free. The Greek miracle, the philosophies and plays and architecture rests on the backs of the enslaved. No one calls it unjust, they simply call it natural. But your stomach growls, so you barter for a few olives and a hunk of barley bread. The vendor eyes you suspiciously. Your accent, your clothes, your hesitation, it all gives you away. "You're not from here," he says. "What polis do you belong to?" You don't answer quickly enough. A crowd gathers, questions fly. Are you a runaway slave, a spy, a Persian sympathizer? Before you can escape, two men in short chitons and cloaks grab you by the arms. They drag you to the local magistrate. You're interrogated harshly, accused of being a xenos, a foreigner with unclear allegiances. Without a patron to vouch for you, you're at the mercy of the court, and mercy isn't exactly an Athenian specialty. You're forced to explain yourself in front of a jury of hundreds who vote by dropping metal discs into urns. You try to appeal to their logic, their reason, perhaps quote a philosopher or two. But it's no use. You're an outsider, and in this city of proud citizens and suspicious minds, that's all it takes to make you guilty. You're sentenced to exile, if you're lucky. If not, well, the hemlock still waits in its cup, just as it did for Socrates. Either way, you're thrust out of the city, your clothes still reeking of yesterday's sweat, and your heart pounding like a war drum. As you flee Athens, you pass shrines, temples, and graffiti-scratched walls praising heroes long dead. You think of the myths, the tales of Odysseus and Achilles, and wonder how people survived in any age at all. You remember the stadiums full of roaring men, the philosophical debates, the bustling agora, and sacred olive groves. You've seen the glory, but you've also seen the struggle. And deep down, one truth becomes painfully clear. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece, not with wit, strength, status, and a whole lot of luck. But don't relax just yet. Your journey through the ancient world is far from over. You still have temples to tread, colonies to sail to, and if you survive long enough, maybe even a war or two to fight. Because in the land of the gods, mortals like you have to earn their right to exist every single day. Exiled. Cast out from Athens like so many disgraced philosophers, failed generals, and unfortunate foreigners before you. There's no formal goodbye, just the dust of the city fading behind you, the weight of rejection heavy on your shoulders, and the uncertain horizon ahead. You're alone, vulnerable, and far from safe. Ancient Greece is not a unified country, after all. It's a patchwork of fiercely independent city-states, each with its own laws, alliances, and enemies. And now, you must navigate that fractured world without a polis to call your own. You head toward the nearest port, Piraeus, a bustling hive of ships, dock workers, and shouting merchants. The scent of salt water and rotting fish fills your nose. You overhear men gossiping about pirates preying on coastal villages. The sea promises both escape and peril. You bargain your way onto a merchant ship bound for Corinth, offering your labor as payment. The captain eyes you with skepticism, but agrees. You're not a sailor, but that doesn't matter. He needs bodies, not skills. The voyage is nothing like the serene paintings you've seen in museums. The trireme rocks and sways, waves slamming against the wooden hull as you bail water, haul cargo, and try not to vomit. The Mediterranean can be a cruel mistress. You shiver under the open sky, drenched and sleepless, surrounded by gruff men who speak in rough Doric accents and don't seem to like questions. When a storm rolls in, you fear the gods have noticed you again. And this time, Poseidon is not pleased. You survive, somehow. In Corinth, towering temples and red-roofed buildings greet you, but so does suspicion. You're still a stranger. You have no oikos, household, no patronymic, ancestral reputation, no clear reason for being here. This time, you know to keep your head down. You work as a porter, hauling amphorae of olive oil and wine through narrow stone streets. Your muscles burn, your hands blister. You sleep in a crowded flophouse where fleas keep you company, and whispered prayers to Apollo echo through the night. Yet, amidst the struggle, you witness strange beauty. You see the sacred games held in honor of local gods, wrestlers covered in oil, runners flying across the dusty track, poets reciting epics of glory and loss. You glimpse women in festival robes dancing in Dionysian rites, their eyes wild, their chants ancient. The old world hums with mystery, layered in ritual and myth. You marvel at how deeply the divine is woven into everything, even suffering. But Corinth is a city of excess, too. With its wealth from trade and temples, it breeds decadence and danger. You see slaves auctioned in public squares, chained and trembling. You hear rumors of rich men poisoning rivals and priests selling sacred favors. The line between the sacred and the corrupt blurs until you don't know where the gods end and human ambition begins. You befriend a traveling sophist, one of those wandering intellectuals who charge money for teaching rhetoric, logic, and wisdom. He teaches you how to argue, how to speak in public, how to question the very truths others cling to. "There is no absolute justice," he whispers one night as you sit by a fire. It's a chilling idea, but you can't deny how often it fits the world you see. Still, philosophy doesn't fill your stomach. Your money runs out. Hunger gnaws. Desperation grows. One day you catch yourself eyeing a loaf of bread left unattended on a cart. You hesitate. And that's enough. A boy sees you, yells, the baker comes running. You flee, heart pounding, ducking into a shrine of Hermes, god of thieves and travelers. You light a small oil lamp, murmuring a plea for protection. Maybe he'll understand. Eventually, your travels take you west to the Peloponnese. You think of Sparta, the mighty warrior state. Maybe there you'll find order, strength. But from the moment you near their borders, you feel the tension. Spartan society is unlike anything you've seen. Rigid, austere, controlled. Boys are taken at age 7 to be molded into soldiers. Girls are trained to be strong and fearless. All luxuries are forbidden. Even speaking too much is frowned upon. In Sparta, you're nobody unless you bleed for the state. You're not even allowed to live in the city. Foreigners are watched closely. You stay in the surrounding villages, speaking little, working for food, and trying not to attract attention. You see young boys in red cloaks sparring with wooden swords, their eyes hard, their bodies bruised but proud. You hear the stories of helots, state-owned serfs who live in constant fear of midnight assassinations by Spartan youths practicing the art of stealth. You realize that while Athens worshipped the mind, Sparta worshipped the body, and you, an outsider with neither status nor strength, are nothing in either place. But you keep moving. Through dusty mountain passes, across olive orchards and sun-bleached ruins, you begin to understand the ancient world not as a mythic golden age, but as a landscape of toil, danger, and survival. The greatness of Greece was built not just on marble temples in clever epics, but on the backs of the anonymous, the voiceless, the wandering souls like you. And yet, even knowing all this, you still feel awe when you see the Parthenon in the distance again, glowing like a beacon, a dream carved in stone. You're drawn back, like Odysseus to Ithaca, like all exiles yearning for a home that might not welcome them anymore. But there's one more trial waiting for you before this journey ends. A final truth to face about what it means to live in a world shaped by gods, men, and myths. You return to Athens not as a citizen, not as a guest, but as a shadow. The guards at the city gate glance at your weathered face, your worn-out sandals, your hollow eyes, and wave you through without question. You've learned how to walk like you belong, how to keep your eyes down and your mouth shut. In a world where identity is everything, anonymity is now your only protection. The city has changed in your absence. The smell of burning incense still wafts from temple courtyards, but the streets feel more tense. News of war with Sparta spreads like smoke. Hoplites sharpen their spears. Women clutch their children as messengers gallop by with grim faces. You hear whispers of betrayal, of famine in the countryside, of fleets sinking off distant shores. This is no longer the radiant Athens of Pericles, it's the Athens of uncertainty. You find refuge in the hills above the city, near the groves sacred to the Muses. Wandering among wild fig trees and crumbling marble stones, you stumble across a gathering of men, young and old, seated cross-legged beneath a tree. In their midst sits a figure with a snub nose and broad brow. Socrates. He speaks with intensity, his questions peeling away assumptions like layers of an onion. You listen. You watch. You begin to understand something that's eluded you since you arrived in this strange, ancient land. Truth isn't handed down, it's uncovered through struggle. Wisdom isn't a gift of birth, it's earned through humility. And courage isn't just what soldiers show in battle, it's the quiet choice to endure in a world that doesn't care whether you live or die. Still, you're hungry. Still, you're no one. Desperate again, you work hauling water from the well, assisting in construction, helping dig trenches in preparation for war. The land is brittle. Drought lingers. Disease creeps through the alleys. And then, one day, the bells toll from atop the Acropolis. Ships from Sparta have landed. The war has come home. The city goes into lockdown. Thousands pour into the walls for protection. You are among them, packed into overcrowded quarters with little food and no sanitation. Within weeks, the plague begins. Not metaphorical, not myth, the real kind. Your neighbors cough blood. Children die in their sleep. Even Pericles, the great leader, is lost to it. You try not to breathe too deeply. You try not to panic. But death is everywhere, and the gods are silent. Outside the walls, the Spartan army encircles the city. Inside, madness spreads. Theft, riots, prayers shouted to uncaring heavens. You wonder how this place, this proud polis of philosophers, poets, and warriors, could dissolve so fast. But then again, maybe it was always teetering. You managed to slip away under cover of night, climbing down the steep side of the hill near the sacred way. Your legs tremble, your ribs press against your skin like bones trying to escape. You have nothing, not even a name anyone would remember. But in the darkness, you hear music. A flute. Simple. Aching. It's not a hymn to Apollo. It's not a formal paean sung at a festival. It's a song sung by a woman spinning wool under the stars, humming softly to herself. And suddenly, something clicks. This world, for all its pain, lives through moments like this. Not just in temples or battles, but in the unnoticed threads of daily life, in the children learning to write with wax tablets, in the potter's calloused hands shaping wet clay, in the shepherd watching the sky from a lonely hillside. These are the people who truly carried Greece, even if no statue ever bore their name. You were never meant to survive here, not without privilege, not without strength, not without divine favor. But in enduring what you have, in seeing both the brilliance and the brutality, you've learned more than any scroll or stoa could teach. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece? Maybe. But in that one impossible day, you've lived a lifetime. And now, as the stars rise above the Aegean, and the world fades into shadow and song, you understand the myths never told the full story. History is what's left behind. Survival is what's lived through. Sleep now. You've earned it.